I mean, we get all kinds of inquiries. I think one of the funnest and most interesting ones for me is when they come in fresh and say, listen, I'm new to Asia, where should I go first?
Yeah.
Right. So I think that's where our value really shines, because we are active in so many markets, so we can really kind of help guide them on the plus and minus points of the various decisions.
I do remember that question whenever, especially when we go to Medica and go around this booth, European manufacturers, and they will say, we're not yet in Asia, but where do you recommend to go first? So, it's a good question, right?
Yeah.
They want to enter Asia, but where?
There's a lot of options, right?
Yeah.
You know, we got Japan, China, these huge markets, but have pretty heavy regulatory burdens.
Right.
Initially,
All the
they look at this big market like Japan, Korea, for example, but then it's hard and difficult. So,
yeah, once they see the price tag on that, then like, oh, what else you got? You know? And so we can really market them down through like the fast and easy all the way up to the harder and maybe larger markets in terms of potential with China and Japan. But a favorite one for me is always Indonesia, because I think it's often overlooked, but it's 265 million people, so third largest population in Asia. And the regulatory burden is quite low, right? So even a class C or D device, where the regulatory review process, less than, it's 45 days with an extra 10 days for the official authorization. So within a month and a half, you're registered in Indonesia from the review time. So that's a really nice market to get into. Large size, easy regulatory burden. But there are other facets involved.
Right. Like, for example.
Like, another market that probably Vietnam, right? It's another market that could be for a Class C, B, C device. It would also take you to 30 days, 45 days. Like.
With reference country approval. So these are some of the issues that we have to kind of determine. Is that the cost and time will depend on the risk classification, kind of the grouping, like how many applications are going to be required. For example, Philippines will be a lot more than Singapore. But also reference country approval, right? And so depending on that is going to kind of help shape. The other issue, of course, in certain markets would be to identify a registered predicate. So if we're talking about India, Taiwan, essentially Japan and Korea. So based on all these variables, we could help kind of guide them in the best path.
Another great consideration is go to Singapore first, because a lot of countries, especially Southeast Asian countries, use Singapore as a reference country for alliance or expedited review.
And that list is growing, right?
So I think yesterday, Singapore just signed another MOU with Japan. So we're hoping to see increased reliance using Japan, or Japan being able to use some Singapore approvals. If going back to the earlier point about medical manufacturers, if you have CE mark, then definitely I would love to register your products, because the MDR technical file is very similar to what we will use for registration in Singapore. And then right now we have reliance pathways from between Singapore and Malaysia, Thailand. We have for Sri Lanka for IVDs, and then of course also for Australia, which is a huge market.
That is one that we've been used really successfully for some of our clients, because if you get a full TGA review, it can be extremely expensive and time consuming. But if we can use Singapore as a reference country, it's much expedited. And it's, we can also use, CE mark, but with the MDR, MDD transition, it's been, that causes complications. And if you're coming out of the US, you can leverage a 510K, but then you need MDSAP for your quality system. So, these combinations can be challenging. So then we go, hey, Singapore first, and Australia. It's a beautiful combination.
And I would say that if you have your Singapore submission all prepared and submitted and approved, then you should pretty much be able to use that as a strong foundation to prepare your registration dossiers in all the other ASEAN markets, possibly even some of the Asian markets.
That's a good point. The HSA in Singapore is a very stringent reviewer. So if we can get a dossier through their system, it should be buttoned down for everywhere else, no issues.
And one other thing is the SSA accessibility. When you want to look at for predicate, for example, you look at the website and look at for registered product in Singapore, and you will have the classification, you will have the details about that product, and it's easy to use
Yeah.
as a reference for
Yeah.
classification and
Especially
not grouping in
given-
the Philippines, but classification would be easy if you have Singapore approval.
Yeah. HSA also recently released in beta testing mode device classification tool. So you put in information like your intended use, your product name, and they will try to reference their already registered medical devices and provide you a risk classification that will be closest to what your intended use is.
Yeah.
So that's another one. Another way that might be easier for companies coming into Singapore. Besides looking at the entire listing of tools, you have this AI-based tool that can help you determine your risk classification.
Yeah. We've got some clients that say, we need to get into the ASEAN markets as quickly as possible, right? And so even in that little small exercise, it's like, well, we might start Singapore right away. We might delay Philippines because we can go into Vietnam or Indonesia, and then Philippines gets expedited review for any other ASEAN market.
Yeah.
So Philippines and, Indonesia and Vietnam will be very quick, and so that'll have a review time. And so, total time to market in the Philippines is shorter still. And so there's lots of, it's the Reliance programs in ASEAN are really, there's more and more coming out, and they're fun to kind of figure out and optimize for speed to market.
Another thing is the guidelines on, let's say, for example, for SAMD or software as medical device. Singapore is always ahead of, among the Asian countries, if I'm not mistaken, Singapore is always ahead of formulating these guidelines on how to deal with software amendments and other software upgrade and things like that.
I believe somehow, because we are physically small, so maybe to ensure that we're not left behind, we try to keep up with all these international requirements, and that's why Singapore is also a member of the International Medical Device Regulators Forum. Singapore is chairing the IMDRF this year, 2026, and that means we are very closely involved with any of the recent guidelines or guidances or standards that all these big regulators want to release, be it the US, the EU, Japan.
Certainly SAMD, these software devices challenged the regulatory systems. They weren't ready for them, right? They didn't quite kind of fit. And it's true that I think Singapore kind of helped figure it out fastest with regulations. But even before that was kind of hashed out, it was really fun for us. And I think we were kind of at the forefront of that in Asia Actual with taking some of the first software as medical devices and getting them into these systems. And so I think, and so with that experience, we can leverage that and help the new guys coming in now. So it's, that's also
right.
Yeah, so then I would say because we are able to communicate very easily with each other between each of the different country experts. So we will be able to share any experience that we've gained registering novel devices SAMD if such similar devices are going to be registered in the other countries, or if similar requirements emerge, then we are ready to tackle them.
Yeah, really well positioned by communicating between our various offices. It's very powerful.
Right.